This is our time. Wow.
Yeah,
What a powerful title, right? It really grabs your attention.
it does.
And that's what we're looking at today on this deep dive.
Okay.
We're diving into a talk by Elder S. Gifford Nielsen from a recent General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right.
Now, for those that
Yeah.
might not be familiar with General Conference, it's this huge
Yeah.
worldwide
It
gathering
is.
for members of the church that happens twice a year.
Yep.
And leaders share inspiring messages and guidance.
Absolutely.
And so this particular talk really resonated with me, and I'm excited to unpack it with you today.
Yeah.
So what stood out to you about Elder Nielsen's message, and how does it connect to this idea of this is our time?
Well, I think it's interesting how he starts the whole thing off
Okay.
with a story about his first game as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Okay.
You know, he describes the pressure he's facing, these giant opponents,
Right.
and then getting completely flattened on his very first pass attempt.
Oh, wow.
It's like this.
That had to be rough.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a vivid picture that he paints.
And you don't even have to be a football fan to understand that.
No, not at all.
The weight of that moment.
Right.
And then he connects it to this idea of making valiant decisions in our own lives.
Right.
Even when we're feeling unprepared or whatever.
Exactly.
So what do you think makes a decision valiant in this context?
Well, you know, you think about it.
Yeah.
You might be at work
Yeah.
and you've got a tough decision to make.
Okay.
Like maybe you need to speak up against something that you know is wrong.
Right.
And it takes courage to do that.
Especially when you don't know how it will be received or
Exactly.
what the consequences will be.
Right. But you choose to act
Okay.
despite the fear.
Okay.
And that's a valiant decision
Okay.
because it might just be a small choice. But these moments where we push past our doubts and act with faith,
Right.
they can have a big impact on our lives and the lives of others.
Right.
And that's kind of what he's talking about, I think.
Okay. And he brings in the eternal perspective too.
He does.
He quotes President Nelson, who talks about Jesus Christ
Right.
performing some of his mightiest works in our time.
Yes.
What a powerful
I know.
concept.
It is.
How would you explain that idea of mightiest works to someone who's maybe hearing it for the first time?
Well, you know, you think about a single act of kindness.
Okay.
It might seem small,
Right.
but, you know, it can inspire others to act, and then they inspire others, and it just creates this chain reaction of positive change.
Okay.
And those insignificant actions,
Okay.
when they're fueled by faith, they can create a powerful force for good in the world.
Okay.
So I think that's what President Nelson is getting at when he talks about mightiest works.
Right.
It's not always about big miracles, you know?
Yeah.
It's just about the everyday.
Yeah. The small and simple things.
Right.
And so we have this backdrop of amazing potential.
Okay.
And then Elder Nielsen brings in the story of Joshua. Now, his story took place
A long time ago.
long before the internet,
Uh-huh.
social media, smartphones.
Right.
It makes you wonder how he navigated conquering the promised land without Google Maps.
I know. It's can you imagine?
Yeah.
No GPS,
Yeah.
no instant communication,
Wow.
just pure faith and divine guidance.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So why do you think
Yeah.
Elder Nielsen chose to include this ancient story
Right.
in a talk about our modern times?
Well, I think it's a reminder that no matter how much the world changes,
Okay.
God's promises remain constant.
No.
The challenges may evolve.
Right.
The tools might advance.
Mhm.
But God is always there.
Right.
Remember that great, as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee.
Right.
It applied to Joshua thousands of years ago, and it still applies to us today.
Right.
It's about trusting that even when we don't have all the answers,
Yeah.
even when we don't have the latest technology,
Right.
we can rely on God, his guidance and strength.
That's a really reassuring thought.
It is.
And speaking of challenges and God's presence,
Okay.
Elder Nielsen shares a personal story about giving a priesthood blessing
Okay.
to a young man named Zach who suffered a severe head injury.
Right.
This story really stood out to me.
Yeah.
What resonated with you about it?
Well, it's a reminder that even with faith, life can be really unpredictable.
Yeah.
Outcomes aren't always guaranteed.
Right.
And sometimes we're left with questions and uncertainties.
Yeah, for sure.
And what really struck me was that even though Zach's story has a happy ending, Elder Nielsen doesn't shy away from the raw emotions,
Right.
the fear, the doubt
Okay.
that can accompany these difficult experiences.
Wow.
It's real.
So it's almost like he's acknowledging that faith isn't about having all the answers.
Right.
Or always getting the outcome we desire.
Exactly.
It's about trusting God even in the midst of uncertainty.
Yeah, when we don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
we still trust in him.
Yeah. It reminds me of the story of Peter walking on water.
Oh, yeah.
He starts out with such faith, and then doubt creeps in, and he begins to sink.
He does.
And I think what's so crucial about that story is that even when Peter falters,
Yeah.
Jesus reaches out and saves him.
Right.
There's a beautiful message there about God's unwavering love and support, even when our faith wavers.
Yes. Even when we doubt.
That image of Jesus reaching out to Peter is so powerful.
It is.
And it leads right into this key line from the talk. We can't always choose the outcome of our actions, but we can choose to be ready to act.
Yes.
What does it mean to be ready to act in this context? Is it about constantly waiting for some grand, heroic moment?
That's a good question. Not at all. It's more about cultivating an awareness, of those everyday opportunities to make a difference.
Okay.
Being receptive to promptings.
Right.
Like those moments where we can extend a helping hand or offer a kind word or stand up for what's right. It's about recognizing that even those seemingly small actions, they can have that ripple effect and create positive change in our families, our communities, and the world around us.
So it's not necessarily about waiting for some grand life-altering event.
Right.
It's about being present, being aware, and being willing to act in those everyday moments.
Yeah. And like an athlete training for a big competition.
Okay.
You don't just show up on game day and expect to perform at your best, right?
Right. You got to train.
You have to put in the work consistently.
Yeah.
Hone your skills and prepare yourself.
Right.
Mentally and physically.
Right. So that when the opportunity arises,
Exactly.
you're ready.
You're ready to rise to the occasion.
I like that. That's a great analogy. It really highlights the importance of preparation, of being ready to act when those moments arise, whether they're big or small.
Yeah.
Now, Elder Nielsen doesn't just leave us hanging when it comes to what we should be acting on.
Right.
He gives us 3 specific commandments.
To focus on God, loving our neighbor, and loving ourselves.
Yes.
We're all familiar with the first 2, right? But that third one, loving ourselves, is a commandment.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a twist.
It is.
How do you see these 3 ideas connecting to this idea of this is our time?
Well, it's fascinating because he presents these 3 commandments not as separate obligations, but as interconnected principles.
Okay.
So you've got loving God, which gives us that sense of purpose and direction,
Okay.
a foundation for our actions.
Yeah.
And then loving our neighbor.
Right.
Expands our hearts.
Yeah.
Connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
Motivates us to serve and uplift others.
Okay.
And then you've got loving ourselves.
Right.
Which is like the key that unlocks the other 2.
Oh, interesting.
It's about recognizing our inherent worth as individuals.
Okay.
Treating ourselves with the same compassion and kindness that we offer to others. I think a lot of people struggle with that concept of loving themselves.
I know.
It can feel selfish
Yeah.
or even indulgent.
It can.
How does Elder Nielsen address that potential misunderstanding?
Well, he emphasizes that loving ourselves isn't about egotism or vanity or anything like that.
Okay.
It's about recognizing our inherent worth as children of God.
Okay.
If we're constantly criticizing ourselves,
Yeah.
if we're always focusing on our flaws and shortcomings,
Right.
it becomes harder to see the good in ourselves and in others.
Right.
But when we approach ourselves with compassion and understanding,
Yeah.
then we're better able to extend that same grace to those around us.
It changes our perspective.
It does.
He even shares a story about a man who was struggling with past choices and felt unworthy of love.
Yeah.
And his leader gives him this counsel to love himself.
No.
What impact did that simple shift in perspective have on this man?
It was huge. It was transformative.
Real.
For this man, hearing that loving himself was not just a suggestion, but a commandment.
Okay.
It gave him this whole new framework
Okay.
for understanding his relationship with God and with himself.
Okay.
It allowed him to see himself through God's eyes
Right.
with compassion and forgiveness.
And that changed everything.
And that realization opened him up to experience God's love more fully
Okay.
and in turn to love others more authentically.
So it's not just about feeling good about ourselves.
One
It's
bit.
about recognizing our inherent worth so that we can more fully love God and serve others.
Yes. And that brings us back to the theme of action, making the most of this is our time.
Right. And speaking of action, Elder Nielsen's ward had this motto:
Oh, yeah.
good choices equal happiness eternally.
Right.
That's a pretty straightforward equation.
It is.
But what does it mean to make good choices in this context?
Right.
Is it just about following a set of rules?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think it's deeper than that.
Oh.
I think it's about aligning our choices with God's will, with His plan for our happiness.
Okay.
It's about seeking His guidance through prayer,
Right.
scripture study, and, listening to the promptings of the Holy Ghost.
Right.
Ultimately, it's about making decisions that lead us closer to Him
Okay.
and help us become more like Him.
So it's not about blindly following rules. It's about seeking guidance and making choices that lead to lasting happiness and fulfillment.
Exactly. And that ties in perfectly with Joseph Smith's teaching.
Okay.
That all the prophets throughout history look forward to our day.
Okay.
That we have this unique role to play in bringing about latter-day glory.
Okay.
What makes our time so special, so crucial?
What do you think draws the prophet's focus to
Right.
this particular time in history?
Well, think about it. We live in a time with technology that allows us to connect with people all over the world.
Right.
The gospel of Jesus Christ is being preached in more languages and to more people than ever before.
It's pretty amazing.
We have access to temples and scriptures
Right.
that previous generations could only dream of.
Yeah.
It's an amazing time.
We really do have unprecedented opportunities to share the gospel, to serve others, and to build Zion in our homes and communities.
Right.
It really is a remarkable time to be alive.
It is.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants, benefiting from the sacrifices and dedication of those who came before us. It's both humbling and exhilarating.
It is.
But let's be real, it can also feel overwhelming at times.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the pressure,
Yeah.
to do all the things
Yeah.
to make this big difference.
To live up to the potential.
To live up to the potential.
But Elder Nielsen reminds us that we're not in this alone.
Right.
He quotes Elder Holland, who offers this reassurance. So much rests on our shoulders, but it will be a glorious and successful experience. The victory in this final contest has already been declared. What a comforting message.
It is.
It really is. It speaks to this idea that even though we have individual agency and responsibility, we are ultimately part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Yes.
We are playing a part in a story that has already been written.
Right.
A story with a guaranteed happy ending.
A happy ending.
And that knowledge can be incredibly liberating.
It can. It allows us to approach our lives with a sense of hope and confidence.
Yeah.
Knowing that even when we face challenges and setbacks, the ultimate victory is already secured.
Right. It's not about striving for perfection or doing everything perfectly.
Right.
It's about trusting in God's plan and finding joy in the journey.
Yes.
It's amazing how he weaves together so many powerful concepts.
Yeah.
Valiant decisions, those mightiest works, the importance of loving ourselves, and that incredible reminder that victory is already ours. What a message.
It really is a beautiful blend of inspiration and practical guidance.
Yeah. I love how he brings those abstract ideas down to earth,
Right.
making them relevant to our everyday lives.
Exactly.
He challenges us to translate inspiration into action.
Yeah, to actually do something with it.
Right, not just feel inspired.
Right, exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Elder Nielsen's talk,
Yeah.
is there one key takeaway that stands out to you? Something that wasn't explicitly stated in the talk but emerged from our conversation?
As we've been talking about all this, it really struck me that this is our time. It's not just a statement. It's also a question.
Oh.
It's like a question each of us is being asked.
Okay.
Not with words,
Right.
but through the circumstances of our lives,
Okay.
the opportunities that present themselves, and the choices that we make every day.
So it's not just a declaration, it's an invitation to reflect on how we're using our time, our talents, our energy.
Yeah.
It's a call to step up
Yeah.
and make this time count.
And I think the most powerful answers to that question won't be found in words,
Okay.
but in the way we live our lives.
That's such a thought-provoking way to end this deep dive.
It is.
It leaves us with this sense of both responsibility and possibility.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that this is our time.
It is.
And it's up to each of us to decide what that means and how we'll make it count both now and for eternity.
Well said.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
It has been fun.